Welcome to Pause for the Truth, where you can sit back, relax, and hear an honest dialogue about health, wealth, legal, and social issues. The hosts are Dr. Rogers Kane, family practice physician, and Jocelyn Turner, health education consultant, with co hosts from the Northeast Florida Medical Society and its foundation. Stay tuned for the truth about matters affecting you and your family. We're here to tell you what's really going on and why. Good evening and welcome to Pause for the Truth. I am your co host, Jocelyn Turner. It's a wonderful, wonderful day here in Northeast Florida, and we're super excited to have another Dr. McGowan on the podcast. This one is quite prettier. No shade against her husband, but we're super excited to have the other half of the McGowan team on our podcast tonight, talking about a different subject, but we'll get to her in a moment. Let me first, of course, bring in my co-host, Dr. Rogers Kane. How are you doing this evening, Dr. Kane?
I'm great. I mean, we've had great weather for the last week, and even with the rain, I just love the temperature. Um, and some people saying, yeah, it might have been a little cooler for them. I'm going like, look, I don't care how cool it is. I can put on a lot of clothes. I just can't take off and not get put in jail or people being disgusted for some reason or another. So, this has been great weather. It's been a great week. Minus some other national issues, but great week as far as we're concerned in Jacksonville, and from a personal standpoint, just being here and enjoying this weather.
Well, thank you, Dr. Kane. And you're right, the weather has been amazing, but I always have to insert that we in Florida, it's hurricane season, June 1 to November 30th. So if you don't have your go bag ready, just in case a storm comes this way, make sure you get that ready. And should include a list of your medications. Email those to yourself or to a loved one so that you'll have those on file. And you want to make sure you have a few days of water for each individual in your household, as well as food that's non-perishable, and also blankets. Just, we Google everything, Dr. Kane. So just folks, Google emergency preparedness kit for the home, and it will tell you batteries, flashlight, those essential things that you might need. I personally invested in rechargeable or solar
Right.
flashlight, solar fan, because obviously if you lose power, then you will not have access to electricity. So to get solar powered items is always a good thing. So enough about me.
Wait a
So
minute. Before you move forward, let me just say this: solar generator. Go ahead and do that. Also, take an inventory of your medications. I mean, keep an eye on the weather channel and stuff. That starts saying, maybe 2 weeks from now, a week from now, we may be hit with this, that, and the other. And I want people to take a look at their inventory of their medication so that they can call their physicians and get those things refilled well in advance and not wait till the last minute, because one, the physician may not be able to answer your call in a timely manner within 2 or 3 days. Two, the pharmacy may not be able to fill those in a timely manner. So that's the only reason that I interrupted you, but go ahead.
Sure. And you're right, Dr. Kane. Thank you for those tips. That's why we're a team, because we remind each other of things. And coming from behind the scenes on this special day, his birthday, is our behind the scenes technology expert called Tyrone Jackson. Happy birthday, Tyrone. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you. I have only one complaint. I moved to Florida for the hot weather, and this stuff we've been having lately is not meeting up to my standards. So I need somebody to correct that.
Go back where you come from. That'll help.
Well, I hope you've had a good birthday nonetheless. Anyway, so welcome. Thank you, Tyrone, for all that
Happy
you do to
birthday.
make sure that Pause for the Truth is on the air with little to no hiccups. As we approach, by the way, to our studio audience, we are approaching our 200th episode. Send us your ideas to info@pauseforthetruth.com. Let us know what you think we should do for our 200th episode. That is definitely something worth celebrating. Again, at the beginning of the show, I mentioned to you that we have the other part of the doctors McGowan. We had Dr. Ross McGowan on a couple of weeks ago, and he had such a good time. He was like, Dr. Kane, you need to let my wife come on so she can have a good time with y'all as well. So, Dr. McGowan, don't shake your head. That's a beautiful thing that your husband wants you to come on and he wants the world to know how fabulous you are.
Well, that's him.
Yeah, did I put you on the spot? Well, welcome to Pause for the Truth. And we are happy to have you.
I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. And Dr. McGowan is a chiropractor as well as her doctor, but she's coming to talk about something else that she has a passion for. She's a trauma coach. And I don't know about you, but most of us have experienced some type of trauma in our lives, or we've known some family members or friends who've experienced trauma. And I tell you what, Dr. McGowan, when it happens, boy, does it happen. It just totally throws you off. And just when you think you have your life and everything in order and can expect the unexpected, it's amazing how something happens and just tells you differently. So let's talk about your journey. What brought you into the space of trauma coaching?
Well, I guess let me see, what was that? 15 years ago now, I was involved in a home invasion robbery. So my front door was kicked in at 9 something in the morning, and I was met with a gun to my forehead. As I was coming out of the bathroom, the guy, as soon as I turned the corner, he hit me right here in the head with a 9mm. No face mask. I saw everything. Nobody had. It was 3 of them. Nobody had their face mask, their face covered. Some of them had their hands were free. And he drugged me around the house demanding money. I had on scrubs at the time, so my scrubs and my panties were at my ankles because I was running because I heard a loud noise, and I thought something had happened to my daughter, and because my mom was there also. And so when I saw them, they were screaming. He then he drugged me around to the to the kitchen, and then he put the gun to my daughter's head. She was 3 years old at the time. And so then he started dragging me around the house again and just started demanding money, asking me where a safe was. He put me like in a chokehold like this, and then he put the gun to my temporal, and he was just dragging me around the house while I was in a chokehold and just kept like hitting my head with the gun, and dragged me around the house. And then after they got the safe, and he was cursing and doing all this stuff, I just remember praying for him, and I just was asking God to forgive him, and for he know not what he's doing. I was like, God, just forgive him. And he was just like, shut up, B, shut up. You don't have to pray for me. You don't have to do all this for me. And back then, there was house phones. So now everybody has a cell phone, but we had house phones. So he was pulling the phones out of the wall and taking them and just slamming them on the floor so that I wouldn't be able to call for help. And then as he was leaving, he took the back of my head and pressed it down into a glass table, and he tried to, like, all my face just went into the table. So it was just like bruised. It was just bad. And then come to find out later, about 2 weeks later, I found out that I was pregnant. I didn't know I was pregnant at the time of the robbery. So I ended up losing that baby. And so that started a cycle of miscarriages for me. So even during the trial,
they caught him?
Yes, ma'am. They caught him. They ended up with life in prison because in Florida, when you come into somebody's dwelling with an armed weapon, you automatically get life. in prison. So they got life in prison, and then, well, two of them did. One of them didn't because he flipped. They call him like a flipper, and he was able to give information or something. So he had a lesser sentence because of that, because of something he made an agreement with the court system. I went on Dr. Phil to talk about the show, to talk about the robbery. And then when I was actively recording for Dr. Phil, I was miscarrying another baby. So while the time that we were taping the show, Dr. Phil was even like, we can stop the taping. We can send you to Mount Sinai. You can go. So instead, I just told him I just wanted to fly home that night. So during the taping of that show, I was having a miscarriage. During the trial for the guys, I had another miscarriage. So I went head on and had a total of 7 miscarriages.
Wow.
Between my first baby and my son. So that was like a total of 7 in a 4.5-year span. And each time I was showing, it wasn't like 5-week pregnancies. It was like 12, 17, 20 weeks. I was showing for each one. And so I ended up going to counseling. I tried therapy. I did the EDMR lights. I did everything. And once I got better, I started to realize that people would start to talk to me about like different traumas and stuff that they went in. It was almost like people would just find me and they would just want to talk about stuff. Like they just dump. It could be a grocery store. It could be strangers. It could be anybody. They don't even have to know my story. They don't know anything about me. And they just started, pouring into me about different things that they had been through. And I was just like, I wanted to find a way to better assist them. And so I learned about trauma coaching and life coaching. And so that's kind of like how I got here, because I've been through the PTSD, I've been through therapy, I've been through depression, anxiety. I still suffer from panic attacks every now and then. It just depends on certain triggers. And once I went through the trauma therapy and the trauma coaching school, it just allowed me to just have a different approach on how I see it, and then how I ask questions, like when I'm talking to people, just to see if it's something that I can help them with. So I was kind of led there because of something that I went through. I'm not sure if that would have been my plight had I not gone through that, but I thank God for using it for something good at this point.
That's what I was going to say. Wow. First of all, thank God that you and your mother and daughter were all not, and it's hard to say harmed, Dr. McGowan, because you were harmed, right? I can't even imagine that experience. But for the grace of God, most of us have not had that experience. And unfortunately for some, they didn't live to tell their story. So thankfully, you live to tell your story. And when we talk about, there's going to be the Healthy Start Coalition is having a session here in Jacksonville, Northeast Florida soon, and talking about, maternal and child health, and a lot of focus is on maternal health because so many things can influence birth outcomes and the health of the mother. And of course, from the child perspective, we talk about as children grow up, those adverse childhood experiences.
Yes.
Those things that I think, folks suppress, and then all of a sudden they manifest themselves to other things. We're doing offering some trainings to some barbers, and some of the barbers have told us that, there are some things that they were dealing with going through trust-based relational intervention that they don't want to repeat with their own children. Right? They want to deal with these things now because unfortunately, that's what happened. People will have trauma, the way they were brought up to discipline that they were brought up, as far as discipline action go, then they start doing the same. It's like, no, that's not necessarily good. That was just the way it was done before. So
you just do what you were taught.
That's it. That's exactly it. So
in my generation, what we heard from a lot of those elders was like, I'm gonna paraphrase it, kind of like pick yourself up out of bootstraps and just move on. And, you know, a lot of people just kind of took it and tried to walk with it, ride with it, roll with it, however you want to put it. And then what you wind up, back then we didn't keep the kind of statistics that we do now. So we don't know how many people actually suffer from that kind of ideology and to the degree in which they suffer. And so, you know, people like yourself, Dr. McGowan, you know, you can open up a whole lot of, you know, a whole big picture of how we need to handle this trauma, you know, especially when you're looking at defining what this trauma is and not people being just accepting it and how to help deal with it henceforward, especially with the kind of trauma you had, because I can only imagine, not to sound chauvinistic, I'm a man, I wouldn't want to have to deal with that any whatsoever. Along that line. And then you being, you know, a woman that, especially with your mom and your child in the house, that's really, really traumatic. It makes you feel so helpless at the time.
Yeah.
But I'll let you enlighten us as to how you managed to deal with that kind of trauma.
And two, Dr. Kane, you know, I was also naked from the waist down.
I heard.
So, you know, I had 3 men in my house and all that was exposed. You know, they didn't touch me there, you know, but it was still the idea of that. And I think that played in my head a lot too. And then, you know, you go through all the what ifs, the shoulda, wouldas, I could have did this. And so then you start, you know, you do the self-blame, you do all these reflections, you ruminate on what was this, what was that, and you start to overthink stuff. I could have did this, I wasn't paying attention to that. And then you start to, it's like victim shaming, like you start to blame yourself for the trauma that you endured and try to tell yourself, well, maybe it was my fault, or maybe I could have done something better. And to your point, Mrs. Jocelyn, my detective, who I'm still in contact with today, she said most people, by the time she had got to my house, she had been a detective, homicide robbery detective for 20 years. She said she was expecting a bloodbath. She said people don't live through this.
Right.
And she was like, no mask, no gloves, armed guns.
Exactly. Yeah.
She said people do not live through this. She was like, how did you live? And she was actually in tears herself. And we still text to this day. And she's retired now, but she'll check on me, and she's like, she still remembers this case because she just expected death. And I'm just one of the ones that stand out to her because I was the opposite of what, you know, normally happens in those things. And I think, you know, when you're crying, you got blood running down the side of your face, and you see somebody take a gun off of your head and put it on your 3-year-old's forehead, just that visual, and you can't do anything, you're like, you're just numb. And that puts you in this whole other frame of mind. Like you don't even know. You don't even know. It's hard to explain. Like it's almost like you're dead in the moment. You can't do anything. You can't function. You can't think. You can't grab this, grab that. It's 3 people in the house with guns. What are you going to do? So I think after that, I didn't want to go to therapy at first. I was kind of like, you know, oh, I can handle it because I grew up Pentecostal. You know, they say pray about it. God's gonna work it out, and I thank God because God is the only reason I am here today. But I realized I needed a little more. I need a little more to go with the prayer and the oil and what I had, because my mind wasn't letting it go.
Yeah.
And you know, growing up in a strong Pentecostal background, that was, you know, a hard switch to tell my dad, well, I'm gonna go to counseling, because in the Black community, sometimes counseling is not a thing that's smiled upon sometimes. So they're like, oh, but you know, God got you, you know, you'll be okay. And I had to tell my dad, I'm like, well, you know, God allowed those people to go to school to become counselors. So they're counselors for a reason. And he gave us, you know, a place to vent, because everywhere you vent to is not a safe place. So you can talk to your friends, but sometimes that advice is not the best advice, or your information gets everywhere. And then that's even more stress because now you're already dealing with what you're dealing with. You done told all these people, now you got all that other chatter that you're trying to filter out. And it just starts to multiply, and to the point where I would have people say to me, oh, you're going to keep trying to have a baby because you done lost the baby after the robbery. You might as well just stop. And it would be people that I would work with, people that we would do business with. It was just like, it was almost like punches after punches, and I would have to smile through it. And, I think if I hadn't went to therapy, and I tried 2 until I hit the 3rd one, because at first my first 2 were like, no, this is not working. So I think even with therapy, it's like dating. You have to make sure that you have a good relationship with your therapist, because if you don't, you won't be able to pour out what you need to say. Because if you feel judged in therapy, it's going to be like you're not going to even get the help you need, because you're going to suppress your feelings. So it's good to be able to talk to somebody where you can actually feel like yourself, and you're not afraid of telling them the truth and telling them what your real thoughts are without, oh, well, just take this medicine and tell me, like, so when I found somebody who I actually meshed with and was able to just kind of unleash on her, it opened up a whole new world for me. And then she let me know what my conditions were, why I was feeling the way I was feeling, things that I was going through, but it was only because I felt safe. And I think that's big. When you talk to somebody, you have to feel safe talking to them.
So what was the turning point?
Sir?
Did you go through multiple therapists before you picked the right one, or?
I went through 2, yes, sir. Okay. And then by the time I got to the 3rd one, it was almost like an instant chemistry. Like before I could even tell her, like, she just the way that she greeted me, the way that, when we first went into just the very first intake, it felt completely different. And I felt seen in that moment. I didn't feel like a statistic. I didn't feel like somebody who was just here and, we're going to just figure this out. We're going to get your diagnosis and take these Xanax and you just go on. It was actually, like somebody that was actually listening and didn't want me to be on Xanax for the rest of my life and didn't want me to take all of this stuff, even though she could prescribe it. She was just like, this is, we need to get past this. And when we get past this, we'll see if you need this. And she actually took time to listen. And I'm telling you, just that safety mechanism. So I would tell people, if you try therapy, just make sure you're comfortable, that you can get it out. You can actually like get it out.
So what was the turning point, Dr. McGowan, where pain started to transform into purpose for you?
So I started having these dreams. I know it sounds crazy, but I started having these dreams, and I would just have these dreams where I was giving my testimony to people about what God had delivered me from and the therapies that I had went through. And I would wake up and I would be like crying. I couldn't sleep. And I'm just like, I gotta be able to tell people what God has done for me and the steps that I went through, and that it's okay to do therapy. And I just kept trying to figure out, like, how do you get there? What do I want to do? Because I would tell my patients, different things, and then I started researching about what I wanted to do as far as talking to women and just different things. And I started thinking about the miscarriages that I went through, that whole ordeal on top of the robbery. And it was just like, I want to be able to help people. So it was almost like when I got to the point where I could tell my story without crying, I knew I was on the right path. And I knew I was going to be able to tell people what happened to me and not hold my truth as shame and feel like I'm actually being a blessing by telling people what I went through and what helped me and I think that was a turning point for me when I realized it wasn't my fault. And I wanted to do something to help other people get past certain traumas. And it's a lot of other traumas that I've went through in my life. So the trauma coaching actually helped me to be able to say, well, because how the body keeps score of what you've been through. You'll be thinking, okay, well, that was 10 years ago. That was 15 years ago. If those things are not addressed, especially in women, sometimes we carry those in our womb. We carry those in our, it makes our pelvis heavy. It's like a lot of different parts in the hips and stuff like that we can actually have pain, and it's actually like stored trauma. And so, if you go into, it's just the way the body and the muscles work, and you'll just be surprised that that's what that tension that you're dealing with. That tension is trauma, except it's not in the head and it's not in the shoulders. It's in the hips. It's in the sexual organs. It's different places that trauma could have occurred that is sitting there. And I try to coach women and I have some men too on how to move forward with that. So you'd be surprised at where we store things that we think that we've forgotten.
It's so many things I can say to that. One is what it sounds like you said to yourself. Well, maybe you said to yourself, but what I see is by helping others, I can help myself as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because you help spread the knowledge and that you gain from that really bad experience and how you help come through it. The other thing is, I'm losing the word right now, but especially when it comes to Black women, the trauma that they've experienced during slavery and Jim Crow and all the stuff that are directed toward Black women even today, wind up that has some epigenetic consequences that that help lead to increased miscarriages, increased blood pressure in Black women, especially in Black women, because you guys were the backbone of this country for most of its presence in terms of what you fulfill for what this nation asked for you, but how much it took away from you guys. And so a paragenetic influence of those traumas is kind of what you've experienced, but just in your one generation is what meaning your generation, you being the generation. Not to say how much that might get passed on beyond you. That's where the epigenetics come in. And so, I mean, that's a heavy burden to take to have. And I'm happy it's not me.
Yeah.
And
yeah, and trauma is not just the event itself, but it's the lasting emotional, mental, or physical impact it has on a person. And it happens when an experience overwhelms your ability to cope. It, like you said, leaving you feeling unsafe, right? And powerless, deeply shaken. I just can't imagine it. If you're just tuning in, we're talking with Dr. Shalita McGowan, talking about her experience and on the topic tonight of finding purpose after pain, transforming trauma into strength. If you have questions of Dr. McGowan, she is a trauma coach, and she talked about her experience, her traumatic experience. I should say one of the traumatic experiences, actually 1 times 7, really 8, because of the home invasion, but then the miscarriages that she had after that. So the lasting effect. I want to get back to one thing that we did not talk about, Dr. McGowan. And again, we always tell people if this is a topic you don't want to touch on, then don't have to. But I can only imagine how your husband felt. He wasn't there when that happened, and how his family was victimized, and the guilt that he felt that he was not there to protect you all. Can you touch a little bit on that?
Yes, ma'am. So I actually called my husband before I called the police. it was, it was instinct. I don't really know how all it transpired, but I just remember he was actually the first person that I wanted to talk to. And I called him, and of course we lost minutes or seconds or however that, I can't remember the time frame. And I just remember hanging up with him and thinking, I gotta call 911, thinking, because he was that was my safety net. So that's who I called first. I didn't even think about the police. And then I called the police, and he was frustrated. He felt like, he was upset that he couldn't be home. He felt that he didn't protect us, but he did, because honestly, I think that if he was home, I think that would have went completely different.
Yeah.
3 men in your house, your wife, your child, your mother-in-law, it would have been a bloodbath of some sort, possibly, and he dealt with that as far as not feeling like he could be there for us. And I just told him, I said, I'm actually grateful that you weren't there. And I know he would have protected us if he would have been there, but I just think that I may not have him had he been home.
Yeah.
And so being able to have him still here with me versus trying to battle 3 men in your house at one time with armed guns, I just, you just don't know what that looks like in the end. So he dealt with it in his own way. And it was, but he was there for me. He made sure that I was okay. And he just did the best that he could. And my husband, he works out a lot, so that's like a stress reliever to him. So he would go to the gym, and that's how he would release, and that's how he would let out his emotions and stuff like that, just being in the gym all the time. So he actually found an outlet. But it was actually just something that was different for him, because his was kind of silent. So he would ask me different questions as to, like, how did, so what all happened in the house? And for a long time, I didn't really want to tell him. I would tell him pieces, so that when he heard it in court, I had to make sure I told him before court. But I just didn't want to give it to him all at once, because that's a lot on a man. You got three men in your house with your wife. It's you want to put your hands on him, kind of, so to speak.
Right,
And he,
right.
he was just really, really, really just upset about that. So I had to give it to him in pockets so that it didn't overwhelm his system. So at the same time, while I'm dealing with my trauma, I'm trying to manage his so that he doesn't, go over. We both can't be around here losing it. So it was like, I'm like, nah, we go. And I don't even know why I did that at the time. I guess that was just godly wisdom, because nobody told me to do that. It was just like I guess like an innate protection that I just had. But I could see him like going through it. And then especially during court, he just carried it silently. And I think being able to talk to his friends and being able to know that those guys were put away for life, and that it wasn't, nothing that we had to worry about, like residuals, like, okay, well, it's more people, it's more this, is bigger than just that. And I think that calmed him down a bit. And he healed differently, but we still healed side by side. So he was there for me and I was there for him. But
Typically, that's
silent.
I'm sorry. Typically, what I see that's what I'm hearing is what I see in Black women. You guys look at protecting your family as quickly as you think about protecting yourselves. And that's one thing. That's what you did for your husband. And you jumped up, and based on what you just said, you pretty much tried to protect him more, and of course your children.
Before myself and my daughter, like yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Before yourself, and that's what makes when we run in that situation, we get so frustrated because we feel so helpless that you have to deal with this by yourself. And I was not there to protect you. I can only imagine how you felt, which wouldn't amount to a hill of beans with what you went through, but still.
But still, he felt, he felt it. And it was just like, I think it was just a hard time for all of us. And then, not knowing at the time that I was pregnant. So when that loss came, that was a whole nother situation because, you know, we were trying to have a baby. So then to get pregnant, to be pregnant during that time, not know, and end up losing that baby because of, you know, the trauma and the stress on the body, that was a whole nother loss. So it was just like, okay, we did this, and then the losses just kept coming, like just kept losing the babies, like over and over. And my son that you know, he's 15 now, but he was a twin. So I actually lost, you know, his twin. And you know, I have him. I'm grateful. But it's, you know, it's just you just don't know, like the body processes stuff, and it stresses, and it was, my system was just too stressed to, you know, to be able to manage. And I had a great doctor. She had me on home health every pregnancy. I mean, I wasn't doing, she didn't want my feet to touch the floor. So she wanted these babies to make it. Like she was like, we're just going to listen to bells and flowers and birds, and we're going to have all these beautiful things. I mean, she delivered all three of my babies. She was absolutely phenomenal. So she actually saved my life. So and that's a whole nother issue. But I just, you know, I am grateful to her.
That's another podcast.
That's another podcast. Yeah, she was amazing. But you know, I mean, to the point my husband was stepping on blood all over the floor. It was bad. So when I tell you God has been good to me, and the stuff that I have been through, I know he wants me to talk to people about what I've been through, and not be ashamed about it.
So how can people begin to find meaning or purpose in their pain without dismissing it or minimizing it?
So the point is not to say the pain didn't happen. So sometimes we think, like, if you had a death of a loved one, or you went through something that we supposed to do, you're just supposed to forget that happened. And because, you know, people say, oh, things get better with time. Oh, it's time is going to heal all the wounds, and time, you know, my mom is 72. She hasn't forgot her mom yet, you know, so it's, you know, so she still thinks about her mom. She still, that day is still alive in her, that when her mom passed away. So it does not necessarily remove the trauma or the pain. You just learn how to cope with it and move forward with it. And you know how to talk about it without, when you get to the point where you can talk about it without having a panic attack, or without having that feeling that makes you feel so heavy to where it puts you in the bed, or it ruins your whole day. But yet you can talk about it and say, hey, you know, my grandfather was this and this, or I lost these babies, and I remember seeing, I'm gonna get a little graphic, but I remember seeing my baby in the toilet. Like, I remember seeing parts of that come out, like, and you're able to talk about those things without it triggering that racing heart, that, you know, the sweats, the chills, the things. So, and I think the more we talk about it and realize we don't have to suppress it. You know, you don't have to suppress what you've been through. You don't have to suppress that somebody killed your son. You don't have to suppress that, you know, that you were raped. You can say, hey, you know, I went through a rape, and this is what happened to me, and this is how I overcame these steps. But you have to figure out what those steps look like in between talking about, you know, being raped, or I'm just using rape as an example.
Right.
Going through the steps of healing, and then what that looks like on the other side, and not allowing yourself to be shamed or to feel like, oh, I'm supposed to be better because that happened 10 years ago. But if you never talked about what happened to you 10 years ago, you may still be holding that piece in. And so my job, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You probably are going to say it because I was going to ask you just to piggyback on that. But if someone's listening who feels stuck, how do you, what advice can you give them as a first step to take towards healing?
The first step is, do you want to stay there?
Answering that question.
Yeah.
What you say, Doc?
Answering that question of, do you want to stay where you are?
Right.
Yeah.
That is big, because you'll be surprised. Some people are okay with, not okay, but moving
okay.
on sometimes is a challenge for them. Yeah, they're okay
Mm.
being parked right there. They got their medicine, they got, so I think the first part is to see if they do want to move on from that spot. Do you want to see what a different version of you looks like on the other side of that? And I think it's because there's a different side of healing. I'm not the same person I was 2 years ago or 3 years ago before I, finished my therapy and my trauma classes and all that. Like, you add menopause to that. That's a whole nother that's a whole nother story. But you're not, healing just looks different. You start to get a glow, and you start to just, people will notice, and you don't have to be medicated and different things. So
For my practitioners that are out there, that's one of the things. Some of what you're saying is what addressing some of the questions we need. We have to ask ourselves, or at least sometimes, and I'm not an expert at post-traumatic stress disorder, but which is what you're actually describing. But recognizing that there are stages at which you need to help get these patients or these people through. I don't want to just say patients because I don't want to describe you as just a patient, but get that individual through. And the first stage may be trying to handle immediate stress. When it just happened, anxiolytics. Giving some little anxiety medication. But we also, as a physician, have, in my opinion, I'm not an expert psychiatrist or anything, but I need to get them through those first initial moments where they can at least try to rest their brain, get some sleep, do some different things to help them get through that first few moments. At some point, we have to look beyond that as a physician, is what I'm looking at. I have to look beyond that and start looking at what's not the easiest for me to get you out my office door, but what's the easiest for you to be able, best way for you to be able to handle the stressful trauma that you went through. And obviously, a lot of times that means trying to find someone else who's expert, like yourself, who's an expert. But there's still that bridging gap that as a clinician that I have to fill until I can get to someone that has the expertise to deal with that trauma.
Yes, sir. Because right after the robbery, like when I went to the doctor, they gave me something to calm, so I can sleep because I wasn't sleeping. So that was like, what do you call it? Mental health 911. They gave me my cocktail. They put me to sleep. They, told me, just relax, just stay in, just anything that would calm my nervous system. So they like what you're saying, because you do want to get the person off that edge, because if not, you just gonna go up from there. You're gonna be, by the time the funeral comes, you're gonna pass out, or whatever the case, whatever that next step is after that. So it's just I think talking it through, and because like when I tried to talk to friends before I went to therapy, it was cool, it was okay, but after a certain amount of time, your friends get tired of hearing it, and they're like, they disappear, or they just like, yeah, we done heard this story like 10 times, but they don't, because they don't have the tools, or they're not equipped to help you. That's why they get the burnout of what you're going through, because they don't understand. So that's why Black women, after a few times you tell your friends, that's why Black women, we suppress it. It goes down, and it's just like, okay, well, it's in the back of our mind now. But when we're by ourselves, those thoughts play in our head. And a lot of Black women just need hugs. And I'm just being real. Like it's some, we carry so much on the inside sometimes. Single moms, you raising kids, you raising sons, these little knuckleheads out here doing what they want to do. And, sometimes you just need a hug and just somebody to listen. And so as a trauma coach, what I do is I just talk to I talk to women, old and young, about what they've been through, what it is that they want to talk about. Most of the time they went through therapy. They went through the medication. By the time they get to me, they're just like, I just, I just need somebody to talk to. So I'm almost like a BFF, but I don't diagnose you. I'm not going to tell you have PTSD. I'm not going to just tell you all these things. But I'm going to talk to you and see what it is that you want to do. What's on your heart? What is if you look in a crystal ball, what does the healed version of you look like? When you don't have to, when you're not laying in bed thinking about what happened to you or what you experienced, or those moments in the car where, something triggers you. Because like for me, smells trigger me. If I smell marijuana, which is, almost everywhere these days, if I smell Black and Milds, if I see a certain look, I know it's a trigger for me. And so when I have those triggers in those moments, I have to learn how to ground myself. And so I teach people how to ground themselves and because before what that would look like, I'm leaving out of Dillard's. I'm looking like I don't put down stuff, and people looking like, where is she going? Like, and my kids, they know now, but because I'm better with it now, but like large crowds and just different stuff, like it triggers me. I don't see patients as much as I used to because it's a trigger. Because, my clinic was cased before the robbery. So the guys had been to my clinic and they saw me. I didn't know that. So me and Royce had separate clinics at the time. So I ended up having to close my clinic, but that gave me a fear. So it was a fear to work by myself. So it's like it's a whole lot of just stuff that made me fearful. So I walked in fear for years, and I didn't want to talk to people, didn't know who was related to who, didn't want to see patients, didn't really go out to too many different places. So it almost like I became a recluse. And it wasn't because I wanted to, but it was fear, and it was trauma based. And it was because of what I had went through, and it caused me to step back. And I think just talking to people, and seeing where they are, and just the trauma coaching that I've been doing so far, people are carrying weights from, I don't know, like years ago or to yesterday. They're heavy, like almost like the world is heavy at this point, but people are heavy with just stuff. People deal with narcissistic relationships. I mean, it's just a lot. It's a lot that people go through. So I just try to help them move forward and see if we can come up with a plan, and that can be journaling, breathing, talking it out. They can call me at any time, and just being that ear sometimes actually helps people. Like, sometimes you don't even have to give advice. It's just nice to have somebody listen to you talk.
Listen, can I just add one quick clarification, JT, before you ask the next question? And that is, when you talk about smelling the Black and Mild, smelling marijuana, is that because what you smell on the samples?
Yes, sir. So the guy who had me, had me around my neck, he reeked of a Black and Mild and marijuana mixed together. Like I knew the smell. And so now when I smell it, and before, especially like right after it happened, it gave me a fear of young guys. I just had like this fear. I would panic like everywhere, and it would just be to the point I just need to stay home because I can't be freaking out. These boys ain't trying to do me nothing, but in my mind, the smell was a trigger. And it would just have me, I would start crying, or I would hyperventilate, or it would just, and even now when I smell it, I don't hyperventilate as much. But that feeling, how you get that adrenaline, you start feeling hot on the inside. Like I get that feeling all over again. And even in my office, the girls know that if I can't distinguish laughing from crying, like everything go on lockdown in my office. Like, because I have to, if I, how some people laugh like they're screaming, like they just loud. If I can't tell if you're screaming or crying, that also puts me in this flight mode. and it just does something to them. Because when my mom screamed, that type of scream, I didn't realize she was screaming for that reason. I just knew it was a frightful scream because my mom laughs a lot. So it was just like, so it's just different things that people don't realize the triggers. And that's even goes to some of the stuff we even see on TV now. You don't know what people are going through. You don't know what people triggers are. You don't know what people's mindsets are. That's why you leave people alone. That's why you let people be, because you just don't know what people are. You don't know what's their trigger. You don't know. So
Yeah. I happen to Dr. McGowan, I happen to work with a program called Recast, and what we are doing is working with families who've experienced stress and trauma, helping to navigate them through those experiences, offering trauma therapy, trauma support, trauma training to professionals, trauma training to faith leaders, trauma training to barbers, everywhere we can, letting people know that trauma is real, and you have to first know how to recognize it, and
yes,
that
ma'am.
encouraging people to say that it's okay to seek help, and letting people know, as you mentioned, in the African American community, going to mental health therapy is sometimes shunned upon, and people feel like, well, I just go to church. Nothing wrong with that. However, sometimes we do need that extra step. And so that's the message that we have been getting out to the community in various settings, letting people know that it's okay and what you're experiencing is real. But I want to talk real briefly before I get into letting you talk about your book, is what advice would you give to family and friends who want to support someone healing from trauma?
Don't tell them it's going to be okay. Is number one.
Mm.
We're quick to say, oh, it's going to be okay. Time is going to heal it. I think you should just let them know when they're talking to you, if you want to be a safe place, if somebody is going through something and you want to be there for them, and you really in your heart want to be there for them, you tell them, if you need to talk, I'm listening. And maybe listen with no advice, but allow them a place to talk. And I think, just remembering that it's more of what not to say, and just allowing them to just be in that moment will change the way that they talk to you, because then they'll recognize you as a safe place. Because if you want to be a safe place for someone, let them know up front that I am a safe place for you. And if you need me and you just want to talk, and I'm here. Because children need to talk. My daughter had to have somebody to talk to. Your friends are there for you. Don't expect them to be okay tomorrow or the next day. And it's kind of like a funeral, like after the body is in the ground, the calls stop.
Yeah.
Or they get less. People don't show up with food anymore. All that disappears, but that week of leading to it, you get all this, so you don't have time to think. But if you want to help somebody, be that person that calls them after the food stops.
Wow.
After the meal train stops, when it gets quiet again. That's when they need you the most, in those quiet moments. And I think just remembering that even your strong friends need to be checked on, even though they look good, they got it, they back at work. It's the moments that they're by themselves. Be that friend and say, hey, girl, I'm thinking about you. Hey, brother, I'm thinking about you. What you doing? You want to grab a bite? I'm going to come over and see you. Just something. And it's not always money related. It's just holding space for them. And I think
that made me think of something, Dr. McGowan. I was at a conference and they told us to pick up a green, yellow, or red sticker or tag or something to put on us. And it said that what it meant is if they had on a red tag, don't hug them. If they had on a yellow, ask them, is it okay if I hug you? And the green is hug me all day. Right?
I love that.
And so I put on the red and people were shocked. They just automatically came up to me. It was related to COVID. It wasn't related to anything else. but people were just automatically so happy. You know, after COVID, people were so happy to see you, and everybody was hugging each other. It's like, no, don't hug me. I was so paranoid, right? Like, no, you're gonna give me COVID. And so, but they were shocked that I had on the red. And I said, let me change this thing to green because I'm freaking these people out about. And so I was just thinking as you were talking, I can only imagine how you felt when someone came up to you thinking that it was I just want to hug her and let her know that I'm there for her, right? And how you may have felt after that individual touched you the way they did, right? And so really we have to understand and know that people have had so many different experiences, which is why they are the way they are now. And we shouldn't judge people because you don't know.
Because you don't know. And that and to your point, Miss Jocelyn, prior to the robbery, I was a hugger, and now I'm not. My husband is a big hugger. I don't hug nobody. And it's not because I don't like people. It's because I felt violated in that moment.
Yeah.
This man was hugging me for however long, dragging me around the house, but I was naked. So now I do hug, but it's like that extra effort. I go that extra step to do that.
Because I'm gonna give you some yellow, red, and green stickers so you can say, this is how I'm feeling today. Today I want some hugs.
I love that. I need some stickers. I love that. Put them on
Tomorrow I might not, right?
Like, hey.
So tell us about your book and also in talking about it, what prompted you to write the book and how can people get the book?
You can get the book on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles, and I do have some at the clinic as well. And the book, I have the book right here. It's called No Longer Trapped. You probably can't see it in my thing. It's called No Longer Trapped, and it's on like I said, Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. What prompted me to write it was I wanted to get the story out of me, out of my system, and then I just started putting pen to paper and saying, this is what happened, and this is how I healed, and this is what, I went through the stages of anger, denial, grief, all the steps of, of healing, and just seeing what that looks like in the therapy and the different things. And I was no longer afraid to hide it. So before, when I was living in this little bubble of not wanting to tell anybody what I've been through or felt shame, it now became a testimony. So I was able to put that on paper, talk about the miscarriages, talk about the robbery, and just talk about how therapy helped me, along with like weighted blankets and just different things that I did to get to where I am. And it doesn't, and going through the court system and all that stuff, and how you don't have to, I guess, victim shame yourself. Don't blame yourself for what happened to you. Learn how to own it. I'm not saying wear it as a badge of honor and say, yeah, pick me, I'll go through that again. That's not what I'm saying. I don't want to go through that again, and I don't wish that on anybody. It's just saying that this is where I am. And before I stayed trapped in my mind. That's why I'm saying I'm no longer trapped, because before I lived in this little bubble of can't do this, can't do that. And now I'm at a point where I can talk to people and tell them what I've been through, tell them about the therapy that I went through, tell them, what worked, what didn't work. It doesn't mean that it won't work for them. So I encourage them to try all different types. It's not just one type. We're not all the same. We haven't all went through the same type of traumas. So what worked for me may not work for you, but I help you flush that through so that you can see what direction you should go to, and what, if you want to talk to your primary care about it, and what you should talk to them about, and see, where that leads you, because we don't have to live trapped in our minds. And sometimes that's our biggest prison. It's our mind. And sometimes it's because of the hurt that we've been through, or not feeling good enough, or shame, or whatever. And, we get that imposter syndrome. That's a whole nother thing. And, you just don't know how to move forward. So my job is to help you think through that process and how to move forward. And that's with men and women. And it doesn't have to be a home invasion robbery. It could just be, you got bit by a turtle at 3 and you don't like turtles no more, and that's your trauma.
Bit by a turtle.
But that's where I am. We're gonna find the light somewhere. We're gonna find it, and we're gonna get you moving forward and stop getting you, you can start the business. You don't have to be afraid because you lost one before. And so I just help I just help people just kind of push through and see themselves and see the better version of themselves. What version of yourself do you want to see? And I help you bring that to life.
Wow, this has been very powerful, Dr. McGowan. Thank you so much for sharing your story and transforming your pain into purpose. At the end of the show, we do like to give our guests an opportunity to share their final thoughts. If you would, share your final thoughts for our audience tonight. And again, remind them one last time how to get your book.
Okay. Well, thank you all for having me. Let me say that it has been a blessing. Thank you, Dr. Kane and Ms. Joplin. I appreciate you both. My thoughts are don't be afraid to seek help. Don't be ashamed. Don't be embarrassed. You don't have to, it's not something you got to publicize to friends and family. I'm going to therapy. I'm doing this. It's for you. And if you want to move forward, it starts with you. The doctor can't come get you out of the bed. We just, it starts with you. So if that's what you want to do, we can, work together and help you move forward. And I think that's the first step towards walking in purpose, is taking the first step towards purpose.
Thank you.
So,
That's awesome. And we'll make Dr. McGowan's book. We'll share on our website where you can get that book as well. And as she said, the book is also that she also has some copies at the office. What's the address, Dr. McGowan?
3021 North Main Street. It's McGowan Spinal Rehabilitation Center. McGowan's got your back. If you're in a car accident, call us.
McGowan's got you back. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's us. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Dr. Kane, what are your final thoughts for tonight?
Well, Dr. McGowan certainly, most certainly had my back. Like, I will graciously thank both Dr. McGowans for helping me get past my trauma, which seemed minuscule compared to what I just heard from Dr. McGowan herself. What I would, like to say briefly as I can, especially speaking as a clinician. First of all, I'm sorry, Dr. McGowan. I really thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate you taking the time out to enlighten us as to your journey and the issues that you have faced with the trauma that you faced, and your efforts at helping our community get past their trauma. It's not every day that people forget about. I'm not saying you forget about it, but look beyond themselves and try to reach out and help others, which obviously is something that you have done, attempted to do, and continue to do. So I really thank you for that. We appreciate all that you do in terms of helping our community heal. I will say that as a clinician, I see trauma off and on throughout the days, weeks, months, years, where there's death for one reason or another. And one of the key things I heard you say this evening is that, you need to make sure you open up your ears, not your mouth, and listen. Hear what people have to say. Let them express themselves. Don't necessarily try to give your opinion as to how it's best to handle this, because there's no single best way to handle everybody's trauma. There's no one size that fit all. Listen to them. Be attentive. If you need to say something, say it, but mostly listen to what they have to say. The one thing that I always keep in mind that's given me some strength, and it's a testament to Black women, is I remember when my younger brother, the one right up under me, when he committed suicide, I remember at his funeral, my mom got up there and I thought she was going to fall apart. And I was looking any minute to run up to the stage to try to help her off. She handled it so strongly till I'm the one that fell apart, because
Mm.
you handled that. I was just so impressed that it gave me strength for my later years on how I deal with whatever stressors, whatever issues that I run across. And one of the things I did learn and do learn continually is that a lot of times, as you say, after the funeral, after all the glitzy moments where
Mm-hmm.
people are around and the lights and the music and all that, and the food goes away, all of a sudden you hear crickets.
Yep.
That individual is there at home, and
By
I
themselves.
made it one of my modus of operandi that I see those patients and they're here for me somewhere around 2 weeks after the
Awesome.
event, 2 to 3
Yes.
weeks. And
Mm-hmm.
because I recognize that they have not heard from some of those same friends, the really good friends they still hear from.
Yep.
But that all that attention you got to the point to where you may want
That's
to turn
right.
the phone, you get so many phone
Mm-hmm.
calls, you want to turn it off. But then they turn themselves off, like you say, after what they call it, the after the funeral, and they
After
go
the
back
repast and
to the repast, they eat up
Yep.
all your food and listen to all your music
Mhm.
and drink all your liquor or whatever it might be that you had there. After all that is done, people tend not to want to continue to contact you. It may not be immediately, maybe 2 or 3 days afterward, but again, you start to hear crickets. Real
Mhm.
friends make sure, real friends, people who really have good intents, don't disappear because the limelight has been taken off of that individual after the event. The limelight, from my perspective, I'm your friend, is still on you. I have to make sure my friends, my family, that I still talk to them, communicate with them, and there's not a Shalita McCowan around for every person that goes through trauma. So
Right.
remember, if it's your family, please think as to what you need to do with that individual, not in the immediacy. You can in the immediacy, but you got plenty of help people to give you advice. But it's that post, that's why it's post-traumatic sometimes I call it. It's after all the trauma or the attention to the trauma goes away, is when people start to need help
Amen.
and a pair of ears.
A
So
pair of
thank you
ears.
again for coming, and we really appreciate it, Ms. Turner.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Y'all have a good night, okay?
Wait a minute.
I'm
Dr.
actually headed to counseling right now. So see, I just still do counseling myself. So you all have a good night, okay? All
You
right.
too. As we
Bye-bye.
close tonight's conversation, I want to remind you that healing from trauma is a journey, and you don't have to take that journey alone. If you or someone you know is struggling, there are resources available to support you right now. You can call 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, or call 1-800-662-HELP to connect with the SAMHSA helpline, or visit trusted sites like ptsd.va.gov and mhanational.org for tools, education, and support communities. We'll also share these links on our website, pauseforthetruth.com, so you can easily find them. Remember, small steps forward, supported by the right resources, can lead to strength, purpose, and healing. Thank you for tuning in to Pause for the Truth, and tune in next week for another important conversation. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also to reshare, if you will, share tonight's episode. Thank you and good night.
We appreciate you spending time with us on Pause for the Truth. Ms. Jocelyn Turner and Dr. Rogers Kane are grateful for your support. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, catch us live on Twitch, and most importantly, subscribe on YouTube. A big shout out to Tyrone Jackson at Call Tyrone IT Services for keeping us connected. Join us every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for more enlightening discussions. Thanks, and see you next week.